I know that maybe it's too late, but can you hope for something different, thinking about the last 5 races of the year?
Well, firstly, it's never too late. I mean, we've not been in the fight for the championship, so that's been the case all year. I think there's been lots and lots of ups and downs through the year, and there's been lots of learnings, but I feel like it's really, for me personally, it's a foundation building the year ultimately. Every track I'm still going to is a new first time with the Ferrari, with my engineer, with the team. So I'm, even today, sitting with the engineers, I'm having to learn how they set the car up from last year and try to. And then I'm going into practice, and I'm going to learn this new characteristic of the car going into the weekend at this circuit. But it's really positive that I think everyone's working so hard. And it's been tough for everybody, particularly when there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of attention, and there generally is a lot of negativity around how our year's been. And so when we have a good weekend like that, it's really uplifting for everybody, and it's really and everyone needs that. They deserve it. And I think hopefully from here, we've definitely found some findings. There still is more for us to find. There's still more for us to extract from the car, but I think we're slowly moving in the right direction.
The interview was supposed to be routine, a polite conversation before the final stretch of the season. Yet within 2 minutes, Lewis Hamilton revealed more about Ferrari than any engineer could. His voice was calm, reflective, measured, but beneath the composure lay something else: translation. Every sentence carried 2 meanings, one for the cameras, one for the team. Rome wasn't built in one day, he said with a smile, and the words sounded diplomatic. But to those who've spent years decoding paddock language, it meant something sharper. Ferrari doesn't move fast when it comes to change. Hamilton wasn't criticizing, he was adapting. Behind every pause, he was navigating a system that requires evidence before evolution. At Mercedes, his intuition often led the data. A gut feeling on brake balance or energy recovery could trigger a setup shift before lunch. In Maranello, every modification must pass through simulation, correlation, and approval. It's a process that values confirmation over creativity, tradition over trust. For a driver who thrives on feel, it's like racing with one hand tied. He spoke about building foundations, about still learning how Ferrari sets up its cars, about new circuits, new engineers, new philosophies. But what he really described was isolation. Each session is a fresh translation exercise, English into Italian, instinct into algorithm, experience into data points. They need proof, he said later. And that was the key line. Ferrari's engineers don't dismiss emotion, they quantify it. To change something, Hamilton must first prove it 3 times. Yet buried inside that restraint was optimism. They've been listening, he added, and that single phrase marked progress. It meant the wall between feel and formula had started to crack. Since the summer break, Ferrari's feedback loops have accelerated. Lap simulations are now adjusted mid-weekend, based on driver sentiment. A quiet revolution by Ferrari standards. Still, as Hamilton sat there in that mosquito-filled paddock, his tone betrayed a quiet truth. This partnership isn't defined by speed yet. It's defined by patience. And patience in Formula One is always racing against the clock. In Formula One, speed isn't just mechanical. It's linguistic. Every command, every radio message, every debrief note must travel through a web of translation before it becomes performance. And at Ferrari, that web is dense. Italian precision meets British understatement, tradition meets instinct, and somewhere between them sits Lewis Hamilton, trying to turn feeling into feedback that a team of engineers can quantify. He admitted it himself in that same pre-race interview. "I don't speak Italian." The line sounded casual, even self-deprecating, but inside Maranello it meant something larger. Communication isn't just about language, it's about hierarchy. Ferrari operates on structured dialogue. Information moves upward in reports, not outward in discussion. A driver's instinctive comment during a session isn't immediately actionable. It becomes data, reviewed in layers, filtered through process. Hamilton, by contrast, comes from a culture of immediacy. At Mercedes, a phrase like rears sliding under load could trigger a live adjustment in the next stint. At Ferrari, it becomes a note for the next simulation cycle. This delay doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from fear of being wrong. Ferrari's engineers are trained to protect legacy as much as performance. A mistake isn't just a technical misstep, it's a cultural scar. That's why, when Hamilton reports something that doesn't appear on the telemetry, the default reaction is caution. We see nothing abnormal isn't defiance, it's defense. The result is a team that listens slowly. And for a driver who built his legend on sensitivity, who can detect a 1-degree tyre temperature shift through steering feedback, that pace of response feels like driving through static. Inside the cockpit, that silence becomes louder than the engine itself. But change is happening, if quietly. Ferrari's newer engineers, many trained in hybrid modelling at universities in Modena and Stuttgart, have begun to interpret Hamilton's language differently. They're integrating driver sentiment variables into setup algorithms, weighting subjective feedback alongside telemetry inputs. It's subtle, but revolutionary for Ferrari. Still, for every small step forward, there's the lingering question of speed, not on track, but in trust. Because in Formula One, the slowest thing a team can do isn't the car through a corner. It's believing its driver too late. Ferrari isn't built to change quickly, but that doesn't mean it can't evolve. Lewis Hamilton seems to understand this better than anyone. His tone in recent weeks hasn't been one of frustration. It's been one of architecture. When he calls 2025 a foundation-building year, it isn't a euphemism for failure, it's a diagnosis and a roadmap. Behind the closed doors of Maranello, Hamilton's influence is already taking root. Engineers speak of driver-first feedback loops, a phrase rarely used inside Ferrari's walls. It began after the summer break, when Hamilton pushed for a live correlation process between simulator data and on-track telemetry. Previously, those comparisons were done days later. Now, they happen between sessions. The result was immediate: faster adaptation, cleaner mid-stint balance adjustments, and measurable performance gains. At Zandvoort, Ferrari cut their average reaction time to set up inconsistencies from 20 hours to 8. 3/10 of lap time improvement came from that shift alone. But it hasn't been frictionless. For a team defined by hierarchy, Hamilton's collaborative style has required careful diplomacy. His approach isn't confrontational, it's conversational. He doesn't demand, he demonstrates. When an engineer resists a setup tweak, Hamilton offers the telemetry to match his feedback. They need proof, he said, and now he brings it. That merging of feel and fact is slowly bridging the gap between his instincts and their instruments. Even Fred Vasseur, initially cautious about Hamilton's integration speed, has begun referencing his feedback during strategy briefings. Sources within Ferrari describe Hamilton's debrief sessions as a masterclass in composure, structured, deliberate, but quietly firm. He isn't just adapting to Ferrari's rhythm, he's teaching them tempo. Yet there's a limit to patience. Ferrari's culture thrives on caution, and Hamilton's thrives on conviction. Between those poles lies a delicate equilibrium, one that could define not just their results, but their relationship. The question isn't whether Ferrari will change for Hamilton. It's whether Hamilton can keep believing long enough for them to catch up. Because in Formula One, belief decays faster than rubber. Every Formula One team believes in data, but few worship it like Ferrari. For decades, the Scuderia's engineering model has been built on verification before action, a closed loop of simulation, validation, and execution. Nothing changes until the numbers agree. Yet in 2025, the numbers began to blur, and it was Lewis Hamilton who started bending them. Since his arrival, Ferrari's engineers have been quietly recoding how they interpret driver feedback. What began as resistance to Hamilton's "it just doesn't feel right" comments has turned into a new internal metric, driver sentiment weighting. Essentially, the team now assigns numerical credibility to the sensations of its drivers. When Hamilton describes micro-instabilities under braking, the simulator team assigns those sensations a probability coefficient, feeding them back into aerodynamic mapping. It's instinct translated into math, and it's working. During the post-summer upgrade phase, Ferrari's race simulations began integrating this hybrid data model. Engineers noted that Hamilton's intuitive calls on mid-corner aero balance aligned with their eventual correlation tests 83% of the time, an accuracy rate higher than baseline CFD predictions. For a man long accused of relying on feel, that figure silenced skeptics. The SF25's low-speed corner balance improved measurably, cutting rear axle slip by 0.2 degrees through hairpins and reducing tyre degradation by nearly 10% over a race distance. Inside Maranello, some call this shift the human algorithm. It's a quiet admission that Hamilton's instincts can sometimes outrun Ferrari's models. And for the first time in years, the engineers aren't offended by it. They're studying it. "He feels what we can't yet see," said one performance analyst after Monza, describing how Hamilton predicted a floor flex anomaly 2 sessions before the sensors did. But even revolutions built on logic need faith. Integrating human feedback into a culture addicted to certainty is like teaching a computer to trust emotion. It's progress, but it's fragile. Every successful adjustment strengthens belief. Every failed one revives old habits. For now, Ferrari is learning to listen faster. But beneath the surface, one question still hums through every meeting. Can instinct be standardized? Or does it vanish the moment you try to measure it? Change at Ferrari rarely comes from confrontation. It comes from charisma, from the few figures in history powerful enough to bend the system without breaking it. Michael Schumacher did it through dominance. Jean Todt did it through discipline. Lewis Hamilton is trying to do it through diplomacy, and that may be his greatest gamble yet. Since joining the team, Hamilton has avoided the typical hallmarks of a driver in crisis. No public outbursts, no coded jabs on the radio. Instead, he's waging a quiet campaign of credibility, proving race by race that his instincts deserve institutional trust. Engineers describe his debriefs as surgical, precise language, clear references, no emotional outbursts. He never blames, said one team member after Zandvoort. He builds. That tone is gradually changing Ferrari's internal dynamic. Historically, feedback inside Maranello has flowed upward. Drivers speak, engineers interpret, management approves. But Hamilton's presence is flattening that hierarchy. His insistence on open cross-department meetings, where aerodynamicists and race engineers share data directly with drivers, has shortened Ferrari's internal decision cycle by nearly 40%. What used to take 2 days of layered review now happens in a single afternoon. The effect on race weekend responsiveness has been dramatic. Beyond procedure, Hamilton's greatest leadership weapon might be morale. He doesn't lecture, he lifts. After difficult weekends, he walks the garage line, shaking hands with mechanics and data engineers alike. For a team that's often suffocated by its own mythology, that human touch matters. It transforms pressure into purpose. The engineers call it the calm field. The sense that when Hamilton's in the room, nobody panics. But leadership through patience is a paradox. The same restraint that earns respect can also invite inertia. Some within Ferrari worry that Hamilton's deference to process could dilute his authority over time. Others argue the opposite, that he's dismantling Ferrari's rigidity by proving empathy can outperform ego. Whichever side proves right, one thing is clear. Hamilton isn't just driving a car, he's reprogramming a culture. And every quiet meeting in Maranello is another line of code rewritten in Ferrari red. Trust is the invisible component of every Formula One victory. It lives in the space between driver and engineer, where words become instinct and instinct becomes performance. At Mercedes, that bond between Lewis Hamilton and Peter Bonington was almost telepathic. One short copy Lewis could mean 5 adjustments, each understood without explanation. At Ferrari, that intimacy doesn't exist, not yet. What Hamilton feels in his fingertips must pass through layers of confirmation before it becomes action. Inside Maranello, hierarchy isn't just structure, it's philosophy. Engineers defer upward, approvals move slowly, and authority flows from legacy rather than immediacy. In such a system, even honesty can feel like rebellion. When Hamilton tells Riccardo Adami that the rear instability is in the seat, not the sensors, he isn't questioning competence, he's questioning culture. For a team conditioned to defend data, that kind of intuition sounds like heresy. After the Austin weekend, internal transcripts showed the same pattern repeating. Hamilton's post-session debrief flagged irregular brake migration on high-load corners. The sensors, again, disagreed. Only after cross-checking against Leclerc's telemetry did the engineers concede a 0.15-second regeneration lag, exactly what Hamilton had described by feel. The finding vindicated him, but the process eroded faith. How many more times would he have to be right before the team believed him first? Ferrari's leadership sees the problem differently. To them, methodical validation is discipline, not distrust. But for a driver whose genius lies in immediate adaptation, validation feels like hesitation. Every stand by on the radio chips away at confidence. And confidence, once fractured, doesn't repair easily. Still, Hamilton hasn't turned defensive, he's turned deliberate. He now enters briefings with annotated telemetry printouts, preempting objections before they're raised. It's a subtle power shift, proof offered before resistance. The team is learning that listening sooner saves time later, but the clock is always ticking. Trust in Formula One, like tyre grip, degrades invisibly. One micro delay, one missed signal, and the relationship between instinct and institution begins to slide. And once a driver starts double-checking belief, speed is never quite the same again. Ferrari's greatness has always come from contradiction. The same passion that builds legends also breeds paralysis. Inside Maranello, fear and pride exist in permanent tension, one preserving heritage, the other protecting reputation. For Lewis Hamilton, that duality has become both the challenge and the battlefield. Every week, the team oscillates between evolution and preservation. Engineers whisper about innovation, but measure their ideas against ghosts: Schumacher, Lauda, Ascari. Every success is a reminder of what Ferrari used to be, and every failure a reminder of what it no longer is. That weight shapes every decision, every risk assessment, every line of code written into the SF25's control unit. For Hamilton, it's like driving a car that keeps glancing in the rearview mirror. His presence alone threatens the equilibrium. Ferrari signed him not just for speed, but for transformation. Yet transformation requires admitting imperfection, something Ferrari struggles to do. They've been listening, Hamilton said, but listening isn't the same as changing. Inside the factory, some departments welcome his influence, while others view it as a foreign intrusion. Progress becomes political. One aerodynamicist calls for bolder experiments in diffuser geometry. Another warns, that's not how we do things here. Even the data tells a story of divided identity. Since Hamilton's arrival, Ferrari's average lap time delta to Red Bull has shrunk from 0.48 seconds to 0.31. Statistically, progress. Culturally, uncertainty. Is that gain proof of adaptation, or evidence the old ways still work? The question haunts the team's leadership meetings. Hamilton, for his part, refuses to pick a side. He walks the line between provocation and patience, pushing hard enough to inspire but not to alienate. He praises engineers publicly, questions systems privately. It's a delicate diplomacy, necessary but exhausting. Because under all the respect and optimism lies a quiet truth. Ferrari's biggest enemy isn't McLaren, Mercedes or Red Bull, it's itself. Fear of failure keeps them cautious. Pride of legacy keeps them slow to evolve. And between those twin forces, Hamilton must somehow build belief fast enough to matter, before the weight of history drags even him into its inertia. Every great Formula One project reaches a crossroads, the moment when progress stops being theoretical and starts demanding proof. For Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, that moment has arrived. The foundations are there, the systems are evolving, but the scoreboard still tells an uncomfortable story. Hamilton sits fifth in the standings, 71 points adrift of Lando Norris. The car is improving, yes, but not fast enough for a driver who measures seasons in opportunities, not excuses. Behind closed doors, Ferrari's leadership knows this. The team's internal reviews after the Italian Grand Prix marked a shift in tone. No longer process alignment, but performance accountability. For the first time since Hamilton's arrival, his input has begun shaping next year's design direction directly. The 2026 chassis group, codenamed Progetto Alfa Rossa, is already incorporating Hamilton's request for higher rear stability tolerance under trail braking and a more responsive energy handover curve in hybrid deployment. Technical evolution, born from trust hard-earned. But Hamilton's influence has a half-life. Respect in Formula One is built on results, and patience wears thin in the shadow of the prancing horse. He knows that. That's why every debrief now carries a sharper edge, every feedback session a clearer demand. We have to move faster, he told the engineers after Suzuka, and they knew he wasn't talking about lap times. Ferrari's progress is measurable but fragile. The SF25's degradation curve has flattened by 11%. Hybrid efficiency is up 7%. Yet one bad weekend could erase months of cultural gains. Change, especially in Maranello, is only real when it's visible under podium lights. And Hamilton doesn't have endless seasons left to wait for validation. The next few races will decide more than standings. They will decide whether Hamilton's diplomacy becomes doctrine, or just another chapter in Ferrari's long archive of almosts. Because evolution without urgency becomes nostalgia. And if Ferrari can't match Hamilton's tempo soon, history may remember him not as the driver who rebuilt belief, but as the one who proved how fragile it truly was. In the end, Ferrari's 2025 season won't be remembered for wins or podiums. It will be remembered for translation. The translation of instinct into data, emotion into engineering, and Lewis Hamilton's relentless effort to turn a century-old institution into something living, breathing, and adaptable again. From the outside, the story looks simple, a legend chasing one last miracle. But inside the paddock, those who watch closely see something deeper. Hamilton isn't just driving, he's documenting a transformation in real time. Each comment, each adjustment, each post-race debrief is a subtle rewriting of Ferrari's DNA. When he says, "We're building foundations," he's not being polite. He's warning the world that he's constructing something meant to outlive him. And yet, the numbers tell their own truth. Ferrari's average qualifying deficit to McLaren has shrunk to just 0.26 seconds. Their pit stop turnaround times now rivaling Red Bull's. The systems are improving, the data cleaner, the execution sharper. But culture, the hardest metric to quantify, still lags behind. The team that once defined Formula One passion remains caught between worshipping its past and trusting its present. As an analyst, here's the verdict. Hamilton's greatest battle this year hasn't been against Max Verstappen or Lando Norris. It's been against inertia. Ferrari's engineers are learning that precision without belief is sterile, that data without intuition is directionless. And Hamilton, more than anyone, understands that championships aren't won by numbers alone. They're won by teams willing to listen before they're proven right. So the question isn't whether Ferrari can build a faster car for 2026. They almost certainly will. The question is whether they can build a faster culture, one capable of reacting at Hamilton's pace. Because belief, like downforce, only works when it's balanced.